Chris Torma is an actor. He grew up playing the stages of Missoula, spent his 20s working, playing, and studying in other places. California, Ohio, Colorado, Texas, and New York. And today he calls Missoula home again. Chris doesn't get stage fright as long as he's acting. This thing, he said, ain't acting. Please welcome to the stage, Chris Torma.
I'm watching the timer this time. So when I was 20 years old, I had just left Montana for the first time and had my first job outside of Montana working in a country club in Palm Springs, California. And I also had a job working for one of the members of the country club as his driver. This guy was about 78 years old, and I'd drive he and his wife to some function across town at night because he couldn't drive at night, and hang out in the car for an hour or so while they did what they did, drive them home, and he'd pay me $100. And after having this job for a couple of months, my boss at the country club, who got me that gig, the driving gig, came up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Barton wants you to drive him to Phoenix. He goes to Phoenix every year to go to this car show. He's a big car nut, and he wants you to drive him out there. It'll be an overnight thing. You'll drive him out there. He'll put you up at a hotel. He'll pay for all your food. He'll even take you to the car show and so on and so forth." And he said, "No, and he'll pay you $500 to do it." And I thought, well, that's not so bad. I've been driving the guy for a while, and seems like an all right guy. So on the day that we're supposed to go to this car show, I grab my overnight bag and I hoof it over to his place, and we hop in his Mercedes SL500 convertible, and we hit the highway. And along the trip, along the way, he says, "Tell me about yourself. I want to get to know the guy who's been driving me and my wife around for the past few weeks." And so, I told him a little bit about my background, my growing up in Missoula, what's like to live in Montana, so on and so forth. The fact that I had done theater all my life, the fact that I like to sing, so on and so forth. He told me a little bit about being the son of a wealthy tycoon industrialist in the harbor area of coastal Oregon, and being a wealthy industrialist himself and involved in the community. And after a while, I thought this was kind of a new experience for me. I was making friends with someone 4 times my age, and that was something that had never really happened to me, in my life. And so, we're heading to Phoenix. We're just hitting it off, and he's telling me, "Don't stop calling me Mr. Barton. Please call me Graham." Now, my boss had told me when he got me this gig, he said, "Don't call him by his first name. Call him Mr. Barton." Well, against my boss's better judgment, I said, "Okay, I'll call you Graham," and from then on, I did. So we got to Phoenix. We went to the car show, and he was all excited about the car show. I'm not really I don't know shit about cars, but it was fun to watch watch people get excited, paying $200,000 for some old car, whatever. That's neither here nor there. So we left the car show and went and checked into the hotel, got our bags into the hotel, and we then went out to dinner, sitting around at dinner, talking some more. Who are you? Tell me about yourself, all that. What'd you think of the car show? And he said, "You know what? I want to hear you sing. You said you like to sing." I said, "I want to hear you sing." And asked one of the waiters. He said, "So where's the place we can go? Where's a karaoke place around here?" And they told us about one. So we went out and we had a couple of drinks, and I got up and sang some Otis Redding because that's what I do. And he was truly impressed. He said, you have a fantastic voice. He said, I really like your voice. And then he said, we got back to the hotel, and he said, let's sit out on the balcony here, and I want to talk with you about your career? So I know a few people. I know Merv Griffin. He said, I know the president of ABC. He said, I feel like, if you're really serious about this, I could help you. And, maybe introduce you to a few people. And, well, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I was just some kid from Montana who, grew up doing theater in Missoula. But it was kind of neat, and he was really flattering, and really seemed like a pal. And this whole while he had brought a bottle of peppermint schnapps, and so we're sipping on peppermint schnapps this whole time. It's getting kind of late, and I'm getting kind of drunk, and I finally said, I think I need to go to bed, and I got ready for bed, and I crawled into my bed, and as I was, he said, I want to show you something. And the wanker knows what's happening. He said, I want to show you something. And he goes to his bag, and he opens up his bag, and he pulls out this device. And it's long, it's cylindrical. It's got an electric cord coming out the back end of it. And it's got this thing, it kind of looks like the Stratosphere Hotel in Vegas. You hold it on end, it's got the little disc on top. And I just said, well, okay, what's that? And he said, well, it's a massage wand. And he said, would you like a massage? And I said, well, no. And then the damnedest thing that for some reason, I still can't figure out why. I said, but would you? and he turned white as a sheet. And he was mortified when I asked him that for some reason. He said, no, forget about it. He took it and he put it back in his bag, the bottom of his bag, zipped it up, got in bed, turned off the light, and went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night and went to the bathroom and unloaded, because schnapps. And I came out of the bathroom to see him standing there again, looking exactly the same, just mortified. And he said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I feel a lot better now. I just need to go back to bed. And so I went back to bed and got up the next morning, felt fine because I was 20 years old and I could do that. Went and decided to go work out. And when I got back to the hotel room after my workout, he was packing up his bags, and he said, how was your workout? And I said, it wasn't bad, it was pretty good. He said, so, well, let's see what you did. Come on, take off your shirt. And, I looked at him, I was like, nah, whatever, dude. And went and took a shower, and it was kind of weird, but I didn't really think too much of it. He's an old man, I'm not gonna judge his life. And so we get in the car, we're headed back to Palm Springs from Phoenix. I don't know, it's like a 5-hour drive, something like that. About halfway, we're having a conversation. He just out of the blue looks over at me, he says, Chris, have you ever thought you were gay? And now I'm a thoughtful person, so when people ask me what I think, I tend to think about it. And I did, and I said, what? I never really have thought about it, but now that I do, no, I don't think I am. And he said, oh, okay. And the rest of the trip home was, just more small talk, nothing much at all. So we got back, I drove back to his place, he paid me $500, I went back to my bungalow, and about that time it was dinner, so I went over to the ranch club and the employee dining room, grabbed myself a bite to eat, and sat down at a table with some of my coworkers and began to eat, and I noticed it was really quiet. These people usually like to talk and gossip and all kinds of things, but it was just stone quiet, and they're all looking right at me. And somebody says, how was your trip to Phoenix with Mr. Barton? So it was fine. What'd you do? And I told him we went to the car show, we had dinner, and did karaoke. They said, did you stay in a hotel? Yeah. Did you stay in the same room? Yeah. Same bed? No. And this kind of went on for a little while, and I realized I was getting the third degree from my friends, and I said, what the hell is going on? Why are you doing this? And so finally a woman leans over to me, and she had been there a number of years, and she said, "Chris, Grant Barton is gay. Every year, he hires some young, good-looking man to drive him around, and nobody really knows what happens. But he's always with him." And I started to think about my experiences with working with Mr. Barton, Graham, and I was overwhelmed with embarrassment. I mean, it was like nearly traumatic embarrassment. And I picked up my food and I threw it away. And I walked back to the bungalows, got back to the courtyard. I gotta hurry up. Got back to the courtyard and saw another guy there this guy was an ex-Marine. He was one of my co-workers, real semper fi, do or die, rough, tough kind of guy. And you could tell I was distraught, and he said, "What's going on?" And I told him what had just happened in the cafeteria, and he said, No, don't worry about it. Those women, they're just jealous because he only hires men." And I said, "No, I actually think they might be right." Told him a little bit about what happened. And long story short, the next day I told my boss, "I'm not going to drive for Mr. Barbie again. We're done with that." They actually ended up hiring the ex-Marine guy, which I thought was kind of funny. But in thinking about that story and remembering that story, I really carried a great deal of resentment toward him for a long time, for being, I felt manipulated. And I honestly really carried a lot of resentment toward him for quite a while. But, time and distance have helped me detach from those feelings. And, at this point, I've discovered that I feel some compassion for the man. And when I think of him, I think, it must have been difficult for him in, the 50s, being who he was within his community, in conflict with who he was within himself, with his own desires. And, it kind of leaves me thinking and wondering, and maybe if he had been around today, would he have had a better go of it? Would it have been easier for him to just be himself, to be honest with everyone who knew about who he really was? And maybe so, maybe not. I don't know. That's my story. Just barely over 10, right?